Republican Congressman George Santos, we know, is very dishonest. And we now also know he may have partook in criminal activity with the financing of his election. So let's dive into that today. Here from Mother Jones. We tried to call the top donors to George Santos's 2020 campaign. Many don't seem to exist. In September 2020, George Santos's congressional campaign reported that Victoria and Jonathan Rager had each contributed $2,800, the maximum amount, to his first bid for a House seat. Their listed address was 45 New Mexico Street in Jackson Township, New Jersey. A search of various databases reveals no one in the United States named Victoria or Jonathan Rager. Moreover, there is nobody by any name living at 45 New Mexico Street in Jackson. That address doesn't exist. There is a New Mexico street in Jackson, but the numbers end in the 20s according to Google Maps and a resident of the street. And then Santos's 2020 campaign finance reports also list a donor named Stephen Berger as a $2,500 donor and said he was a retiree who lived on Brant Road in Brawley, California. But a spokesperson for William Brandt, a prominent rancher and a Republican donor, tells Mother Jones that Brandt has lived at the address for at least 20 years and neither he or his wife have made any donations to George Santos. He does not know Stephen Berger, nor has Stephen Berger ever lived at Brant Road. So Santos's campaign is filing names under who have donated to them that don't even either exist or definitely don't live where they said that they lived. Wild, and as Mother Jones notes here, under federal campaign finance law, it is illegal to donate money using a false name or the name of someone else. It's called a contribution in the name of another. So it seems pretty obvious there. Right now, I guess you would say this is still all alleged, but pretty obvious that something illegal went on there because they're putting down names of individuals that definitely did not donate to them. And the question has to be asked, why? Who actually gave them that money? Because they got the money. That's real money. That exists. But the person that they put down doesn't. And that raises some huge, huge questions. And then you move on to the fact that this huge $500,000 personal loan that George Santos originally said he gave to himself, now his campaign has admitted it wasn't a personal loan. It wasn't from George Santos himself. Here from Yahoo News. George Santos promised reporters a surprise on Tuesday when he brought coffee and donuts for the journalists staking out his office. It was a letdown, but Santos apparently had another surprise. Late Tuesday afternoon, Santos's political operation filed a flurry of amended campaign finance reports, telling the feds, among other things, that a $500,000 loan he gave to his campaign didn't, in fact, come from his personal funds, as he'd previously claimed. However, while the newly amended filing told us where the funds did not come from, it also raised a new question: where did the money come from? And a similar question has to be raised there. If it wasn't from himself, who was it from? Very, very suspicious stuff there, and just further showing us the just massive mountain of reasons that George Santos should not be in Congress. Here is George Santos responding to this reporting.
Democrat for committees until you get cleared. Are you confident that you will be cleared?
Yes, I am.
Why are you confident?
I'm confident I'll be cleared because I have nothing to hide.
Why when do you answer questions about your past, your finances?
My questions will be answered to the appropriate people. The media is not judge and jury of anything. Sorry, guys.
Why do you think you're under investigation?
This is always the refrain from individuals who get caught in massive lies. Trump did it as well. Turn it around on the media. Sorry, the media isn't the judge and the jury. Yeah, but they are the individuals, the entities that are supposed to hold accountable our elected officials and give us, the American people, insight into what's going on in Washington and elsewhere. Well, interestingly enough, another bit of news with George Santos, he has voluntarily, is the story, stepped down from committee. So he's not resigning. He's sticking to the line that he's not going to resign, but he stepped down from committees, which is interesting. Take a look at him being asked about this.
Did McCarthy tell you to step away from the committees, or did you make this decision?
Nobody tells me to do anything. I made a decision on my own that I thought best represented the interest of the voters.
Did McCarthy tell?
Interesting. So whenever you were being put onto committees, the vibe you were trying to give off was, of course I would be put on committees. I'm trying to serve my constituents. They voted me in here. And now you're telling us that it's in their interest for you to not be on committees. And as we talked about in the past, while we might not dive into super often the nitty-gritty specifics of the committee process, it's important. And it does allow our congressional leaders to have more or less power. So he's voluntarily giving up power and saying it's not because he was pressed by Republican leadership. We'll get into more of that in a second. But part of this might be because he is getting the same information we are on the popularity of George Santos in his district here from media. According to a new survey of the congressman's district from Newsday and Siena College, voters in New York's 3rd want Santos to resign by an overwhelming margin. In all, 78% of voters in the district believe that Santos should step down over the massive deceptions about his personal history, as well as the major campaign finance questions plaguing him. That number includes 71% of Republicans who want him out of Congress, along with 89% of Democrats. Just 13% of his constituents believe he should stay in office, with 9% saying they don't have an opinion. So 78% of his district, at least according to this poll, says he needs to resign. And you understand why. If you voted somebody into office based on a story that then is proven to be false, why would you want them still to be in Congress? You would want to have the option to put someone in there that is honest about who they are. Well, here's Kevin McCarthy talking about why George Santos was taken off of committees or stepped down. It was his choice from committees.
Yeah, I met with George Santos yesterday, and I think it was an appropriate decision that until he can clear everything up, he's off of committees right now.
Was that something that you asked him in the meeting?
We had a discussion, and he asked me if he could do that, so I think it was the appropriate decision, yes.
So George Santos asked Kevin McCarthy, please, sir, please, I want less power, because that's totally something that politicians do often. Here's Elise Stefanik.
I supported George Santos as the nominee, and the people of his district voted to elect him. Now, we just got out of conference, and George has voluntarily removed himself from committees as he goes through this process, but ultimately voters decide. And I'm very proud that in New York State, we flipped 5 districts to help deliver us the majority, and ultimately voters make this decision about who they elect to Congress.
So, actually, we'll watch till the end of this.
Again, this process is going to play itself out. I've already commented on this numerous times, and again, it's going to play itself out. But ultimately, voters are going to make that decision, whether it's in the primary election or in the general election.
So whenever it's a Democrat that they think has acted so improperly that a resignation is justified, they'll speak up, they'll be brave. But when it's George Santos, no, we just got to let the process play out. I couldn't possibly weigh in on what I think he should do. And again, I say, it seems clear that behind the scenes he got pressured to step down from committees. But the narrative that they're going with is, no, this was his decision, completely his. He's just deciding he wants less power in Congress for some reason. Let me know if you believe that, and let me know what you think of all of this, all the fishy stuff with George Santos and the dishonest stuff with George Santos at Luke P. Beasley on Twitter.